Well, hello and welcome to a book launch livecast. I am Everett O'Keefe, the founder of Ignite Press, and I'm excited that you are here and excited to bring to you a wonderful author and a wonderful book, and actually a really great story that you're going to want to pay attention to. If you are watching this on replay, I want to welcome you as well. And just want to encourage anybody to go ahead and put comments in, and as much as possible, we will try to respond to them. And if you put questions in, we'll try to bring the questions to the attention of the author as well. Now, by the way, here at Ignite Press, we specialize in helping people get their messages out to the world in the form of books. And if you have written a book and have been wondering how to publish it, or if you've been thinking of writing a book and want to know how to make that happen, just reach out to us. In fact, I would be thrilled to meet you in a book consultation that you can arrange at ignitepress.us. That's ignitepress.us. So let's get to the main attraction. Today I have with us Scott Warrick, and Scott is the author of Healing the Human Brain, a first-hand user's guide for rewiring your mental health. Now, Scott is a two-time best-selling author, a professional speaker, a practicing employment law attorney, and also an HR professional with over 40 years of hands-on experience. He trains managers and employees on site in over 50 topics. He's published 2 books before this, but this book is near and dear to his heart. And I want to bring him on now so he can tell the story. Well, how are you doing today, Scott?
Real good. It's been a busy day. Had a podcast earlier today and getting a lot of stuff ready for the launch, and just very exciting day, actually.
Fantastic. Now, we had the joy of helping you with one of your prior books, and it's just been a joy to work with you again on this book. Now, this book, though, is so different from your other 2 books, which were really more about the business that you do and the consulting and teaching and training that you do. This one's a little different, and I don't want to spill the beans. I want to let you tell your story. So if you would, tell us about you and tell us the story that brought you into healing the human brain.
Yeah, and actually the story starts with my oldest son, Michael. He was born in 1993, and a few years later, we saw some changes in his behavior and things like this, and it took us several years of going from psychiatrist to psychologist to medical doctor and all this other stuff. And finally, in the year 2001, he was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, autism. And if you're a parent and you hear somebody tell you that, hey, your child has autism, and then we were told that, well, this is just kind of the way he is. This is the way that he's going to be. We can do medications, but it has something to do with the wiring in his brain, and you can't change that. Well, we were devastated. So I spent the next several years, 3, 4, 5 years, studying neurology. And I discovered that there were a lot of things that the neuroscientists were discovering that the practitioners didn't know about. They didn't talk about. And I was then turned on to the Amen clinics, Dr. Daniel Amen, who does nuclear SPECT scans, which is very different than an MRI. An MRI is a structural exam that will look inside your brain for tears and clots, anything structurally that's wrong. A nuclear SPECT scan is very different, and it will put you in the machine, they'll inject you with a radioactive isotope called Ceratec, and it makes your brain glow, basically, and they watch you think. And the research on this was very, very interesting. So Michael and I flew to Reston, Virginia, which is right outside of Washington, in 2006, January. We had his brain scanned, and it was a mess. Hot spots all over it. It explained a lot of what was happening with his behavior. But what we were told correlated with my research was that you can rewire the human brain. Actually, the human brain grows about 100,000 new neurons from stem cells every month. And that's neurogenesis. And they will grow sprouts out of every new brain cell that's grown into your brain. And that's called neurosynapses. Well, make a long story short, we put Michael through all kinds of therapies, change in diet, change in lifestyle, change a lot of stuff. Took him back in 2008, and his brain had actually improved. It had rewired itself better, about 10 to 15%. Now, at that same time, that's 2008. And my wife said, hey, as long as we're here, you're getting scanned. And I said, no, I don't need a scan. No need for me to get scanned. And she goes, oh, no, you're getting scanned. You're nuts. You're nuts. And it's always good to have somebody in your life who will tell you when you're nuts. And so I got a scan, and my brain was like a firecracker, raging post-traumatic stress disorder. And understand how I got this. I mean, Michael was born with these types of things. I developed it over massive amounts of distress. And when I say distress, I'm flooding my body with massive amounts of adrenaline and cortisol. 20 to 25% goes right to your brain, and your brain only makes up 2 to 3% of your body weight. I'm literally burning my brain to bits, just like our soldiers do coming back from the war, which is why we have 5 times as many veterans killing themselves as what got killed in the war. It's like, you think about that. It's actually safer for our soldiers to go running into battle, 5 times safer than it is for them to come home and be at home alone with their gun. So make a long story short, I spent 20 years researching this, 10 years writing this book. And in August of 2020, Michael and I, in the middle of COVID, drove all the way back to Reston, Virginia, got our brain scanned. And today, Michael's brain is about 75% rewired. The kid that they said would probably not go to college graduated from Ohio State with honors, just graduated with his master's degree from Roosevelt University in Chicago in psychology with a 3.91 grade point average. And ironically, December 1st, 2022, launch day of the book, is his deadline for applying to PhD programs. He wants to go on and become a doctor of psychology and help people with autism. My brain is about 85 to 90% rewired. My obsessive compulsive disorder, which is a burning of the corpus callosum right here, is completely cured. It's completely gone. All the temporal spots that I had, the anger issues I had in my temporal lobes, those are all cured. Those are all gone. So what the book is all about is it's about hope. And it's just heartbreaking to hear some of these stories. And I've been traveling the country actually presenting on this already before the book's even out. I've been presenting it for 10 years. I take everything that I say in my programs and I take all my research, and my research fills 8 banker's boxes of videos, of research articles, of abstracts. I like to think that I've sort of earned myself an informal PhD in neuroscience. I'm not a doctor, thank God. I'm not a scientist. I'm just a father who's really scared to death and somebody who had post-traumatic stress disorder. And in a world where our mass shootings from 2018 to today in 2022 have doubled. Everybody's talking about gun control. Everybody's talking about, we even talk about mental issues, but we don't talk about the brain. The brain is who you are. Your body is nothing but a transport system for your brain. Look at Stephen Hawking. His body was shot, but he's got a multi-million-dollar brain that is amazing to everybody. So the message of the book is it tells my story. It tells Michael's story. It tells you everything you need to know about how to grow neurons and how your brain works. Okay. What stress is, and you never get rid of stress. You always have either massive amounts of distress, which will kill you, or what we call eustress, which are the great chemicals that will knock the bad chemicals out. So it's all about how do you get the good eustress chemicals in your body. It's all my research. And then the final chapter is all about what kind of program do you need to put together? What do you need to do? Like everything from how much water do you need to drink every day? What should your diet look like? Massages. dogs and pets. How do you get more eustress into your life? Exercise, sleep patterns, and exactly what happens when you sleep. All of that stuff is in the book, and I'm really excited about it because I've in my practice as an employment attorney and an HR person, I do a lot of executive coaching. And I'll tell you, I've sent dozens and dozens of people to the Amen clinics to go get brain scans. Emotional intelligence goes out the window. The ability to control yourself goes out the window if your brain is damaged. And we talk so much about medications, which I'm not against medications, don't get me wrong. But there are studies out there that show that maybe 20% of everybody out there is on the right treatment plan and the right medications. And so I'm a big proponent of the scans, but I'm also a big proponent, more of a proponent of living the right way. And rule number one, it doesn't do you any good to have a good diet, exercise, water, if you've got somebody beating you in the head every day. One thing that I've learned that's in the book, and we talk a lot about this, is if my computer won't work or my car won't start, that'll give you distress. And distress is a releasing of this massive amount of adrenaline and cortisol. 20% is going to go to your brain. Even though your brain only makes up 2 to 3% of your body weight, 20% of all that adrenaline and cortisol is going to go to your brain. It's going to burn it. When you are bullied by a human being, when you are harassed at work, and understand 75, as an HR person and employment attorney, oh man, let me tell you, the stats are clear. 75-ish% of everybody you know is miserable at work. They see bullying or they experience it every day. That releases 3 times the amount of cortisol and adrenaline in your body. 3 times. It will burn your brain as fast as anything else. Now, you kind of see why the American Psychological Association has been saying since 2007, the number one stressor in most Americans' lives is going to work every day and being bullied. That's routinely one of the top issues. Finances is usually second. So the whole book is about what you need to do to actually heal and repair and rewire your brain. And what's different about this book is I got the pictures to prove it. I will show you I'm very open. I will show you exactly how fried my brain was in 2008 and the vast difference in 2020. And the same thing with my son who has autism, how bad his brain was in 2006 and how amazingly beautiful his brain is, how much better it is today. So it's a hope book that you can fix these things.
I actually loaded up for us some of your graphics. So if you want,
sure.
Got Michael's scans in 2006 and 2020. Can I bring them up?
Yeah, please. Yeah. Picture's worth 1,000 words. Yeah, there you go. See, you don't need to know much about reading brain scans to see 2020, it's a lot more cool blue. Your brain, and understand, I have to teach this to shop employees, actually a lot of employees who can't read or write. You don't have to be able to read or write. This works like a car engine. You want your car engine to run cool blue, and that's the baseline temperature. Well, if you look at 2006, it's all covered with red hotspots. Red hotspots are burning 15% hotter. The white hotspots in the middle, that's 20% hotter. Okay, so I will tell you right now, the brain on the left is not going anywhere. The brain on the right will probably be, will be Dr. Michael Warwick one day.
That's incredible. I also brought yours up here too. You want me to pull yours up as well?
Yeah, that'll scare everybody. Yeah,
that was Michael's. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Because the PTSD that I had, yeah, they're right there on 2008. 30% of all Americans have that. 30%. And so you look there, I'm not going to go into detail, but that is massive depression, panic attacks, OCD, a lot of hot spots in the temporal lobes. And then you look over at 2020, just how clear it is. If I had not done this, I think I would have committed suicide years ago. Okay. So that is a nasty looking brain. And I'll tell you, I have a lot of empathy in the world. Post-traumatic stress disorder is what a lot of our soldiers have. And that's why they're killing themselves. And the same thing with police officers and firefighters. More police officers and firefighters kill themselves. And the truth of the matter is, if this message gets to them, they can have that brain that is on the right. Anybody, if I can do it, anybody can do it.
So I am grateful for this. You do have a question that came in from Aaliyah, which was, she'd asked you to, I'll just put the question up. She says, can you go into more detail with the difference between eustress and distress?
Yeah, that's key. There's a whole chapter dedicated to that, because we talk about mental health and we talk about stress like it's some mystic thing. It's all science. It's all chemical. So distress is when you are, it's like riding a roller coaster. A little bit of cortisol and adrenaline is good. It gets you going. That's wonderful. But it's like riding a roller coaster. You're on a roller coaster for 2 or 3 minutes. If you stayed on there for 2 hours, it might kill you. It was just overwhelming. And that's that slope type of thing. Okay. So if you are under constant distress, and understand, distress from another human being is absolutely devastating. It's 3 times. That's what people experience going to work. So you've had a bad day, you come home. What you want to do is you never get rid of stress. You always have some kind of stress in your body. The only time you don't have stress is when you're dead. There's kind of the bright side of that, I guess. Okay. But eustress, perfect example, when you get a massage, when you go play basketball, when you take your dog for a walk, when you engage in a hobby, when you go bowling, okay? What you're doing is you're replacing eustress, those feel-good chemicals. And the feel-good chemicals typically are dopamine, which is the motivation drug. You are releasing oxytocin when you're hanging around good people. That's the loving drug, okay? You're releasing serotonin, which directly combats depression, all right? You're releasing something called telomerase. Telomerase, actually, I call it blue goo. It is secreted into your system, and it surrounds your DNA, and it keeps your chromosomes from unwinding. It keeps you from aging. Okay. And that keeps your brain healthy. And then it releases endorphins, which are stronger than morphine. So the easiest way to think of eustress is that think when you get a massage, you just, and I always ask my audiences, hey, you ever had a massage? And go, oh, yeah, that's great. Okay. Well, part of the program for me is I want a massage every minute, sometimes 2. Okay. And so say you're pulling out in traffic and you just had this massage. You just feel so good. You're full of these eustress chemicals, okay? And then someone cuts you off and almost hits your front end. Well, you kind of don't react like normal. You kind of go, you missed me, okay? You get upset, but, that's okay. That's because you're high. You're high. You're high on these eustress chemicals. And so everything in getting your body ready. Actually, I did the podcast this morning on healing the human brain, what to do. I do these free monthly podcasts every month. And it's all getting your body ready for distress. And people talk about, well, how do I handle stress? Well, the time to train for running a marathon is months before you run the marathon. Okay. When that's what you got to do now. You got to start eating a good diet. You got to start hanging around good people, getting those eustress chemicals in. You got to get your sleep. When you sleep at night, humans sleep in 90-minute intervals. And at the end of that 90 minutes, you go into REM sleep. That's when you dream. So when you dream at night, that's actually when the little scrubbers come out and clean the cortisol and adrenaline out of your brain. And if you don't get enough sleep, you're starting the day with this caustic amount of toxic material in your brain. And it's bad for you. You got to drink half your weight in ounces in water every day. Why? Because you're flushing the cortisol and adrenaline out. So you see, eustress chemicals, you want to do absolutely everything you can. I go into a lot of detail in the book about hanging around good people and all these studies on what eustress chemicals do to your body, meditation. You got to get as many eustress chemicals into your body as humanly possible. And that knocks out the adrenaline and cortisol. And no, you can't go out and buy eustress chemicals and inject them. Okay. You got to do it by living right. And you want to live like Betty White. You want to live like Betty White, positive, upbeat. And I have a relative who knew Betty White, and she said that, oh yeah, people come up to Betty and they maybe say something like, oh, you want to hear something really bad? And Betty'd go, no. It's like somebody smells something that stinks really bad, and they come up to you and say, hey, this is really bad. You want to smell it? No, I don't want to smell that. That's live bacteria. Betty White was sharp as a tack right up until she died. And her body gave out, but you kind of see this chemical management of eustress and distress chemicals. It was down to an art for her, and it's how she lived her life. So yeah, you always want an extra cup of eustress chemicals. You got to find ways to get that into your body every day. And just in case, healing your brain, not falling victim to panic attacks and PTSD and improving autism, that didn't do it. Malia brings up a really good point. If you don't get the eustress chemicals into your body every day and limit the cortisol, all that distress, flood your brain with cortisol. Cortisol is one of the causes of Alzheimer's.
Okay.
So let me want that.
So I want to remind people that Healing Human Brain is available today. You can pick it up on Amazon. The Kindle version is 99 cents. The paperback is also available. But I definitely recommend that you head over to Amazon and pick up a copy of the book. Now, Scott, one of the things that I thought of is this: it just seems like society is so geared these days to feed us cortisol. It's like I know it's in our nature, sadly, to feed on the negative, right? And they talk about if it bleeds, it leads in the news, and all of those things. What steps did you guys take to try to insulate yourselves from that, or to counter the negative impact of the brain that society wants to give us?
Yeah, and you are so right. You cannot live like an average American. What I see on the news is disgusting. And what I see in workplaces, just typical example, I'll often go into training because someone somewhere maybe smacked somebody in the lunchroom because they disagreed with that other person's opinion on abortion, on Biden, on Trump. And my whole thing is, you got to create workplaces to where it's okay to disagree. And in most workplaces, it isn't. And it just amazes me because we've got so many emotional children with brain damage running around. And understand, statistically, 80% of everybody you know who has prescription drug coverage is probably on psychiatric medications. Now, I'm not saying psychiatric medications are bad, but that's the society we've created. If you disagree with somebody, you attack them. Oh, and this is something really good for your question, Everett. We've got one fight or flight response. I mean, it's so obvious it evades us. We've got one fight or flight response. You don't have a fight or flight response for when somebody insults you, yells at you, and another one for when they smack. It's all the same thing. It's an attack from another human. It's just a question of degree. And so these caustic work environments where you spend so much time, it will kill you. And that's where a lot of my brain disorders came from. And let's call them what they are. They're not mental disorders. It's a brain damage. That's what it is. So what did I do? Okay, well, I try to live this stuff. If I run into situations where people are just unruly, I leave. I don't have to stay somewhere if I'm getting attacked. I dropped clients, and I'll tell you, I'll have somebody call up, and I've had different types of clients that are, hey, I'll just tell you, they're just dirtbags. They think because I'm a lawyer that I'll say whatever they need to say to get them out of trouble, and they can do whatever they want to do. And my answer is, no, you're not worth the cortisol and adrenaline. Get out of my life. You're not worth it. And we actually spent Michael and Nicholas, his younger brothers, college money. The public school system, that's a whole nother book that could be written. Most of the public schools are more concerned as to how your kids will do on their testing scores than whether they go home alive. We are raising a whole generation of brain damaged children because of the bullying. We actually had enough of it And we're not Catholic, but we literally life flighted both the boys out of public schools. And where we moved, the schools are ranked pretty good, but we life flighted them out of there because heaven forbid, somebody's bullying. Heaven forbid we do anything about it because we'll get sued. You'd rather avoid a lawsuit than you'd rather do that than save some kid's life. So, and actually, interestingly, we sent them to a school that was is a Catholic school where it was about 65% Black. And so my kids grew up in high school with all kinds of kids from all kinds of different races that they don't, they just indoctrinated that don't have a lot of these bigotry that causes so many problems in the world today. But, so you don't have to deal with some people you do, but you don't have to deal with everybody in your life. And for me, whether I take on a new client and if I discover that the client is just plain dirty, I'll drop you because you aren't worth the cortisol and adrenaline. It goes against my moral compass and I won't do it. And then we live that way. The whole family lives that way.
I think of the first time I fired a client and how much trepidation I approached it with and how much relief I felt afterwards. Mm-hmm. So I can imagine some of the conversations that you've had, in the process of doing that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It can be challenging, but you're right. It's like, I mean, to some extent we get to sculpt the experience that we have in our lives and to a large extent we can't, but we do make choices and the choices have outcomes and consequences.
Right.
It makes sense that we would put that to work for our benefit, right? Instead of just putting up with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Think of it this way. Your body is an amazing mechanism. It's geared to deal with physical attacks. We have the same, make sure everybody understands what I'm saying here. We have not evolved in at least 5,000 to 10,000 years, no matter whether you're a creationist or evolutionist. We got the same brain Fred Flintstone had 10,000 years ago. Our body is actually geared to fight or flight. Okay. So we're not geared to address and resolve conflict. Okay. We're wired to attack you or to run away and stab you in the back to be a passive aggressive. Okay. That's a major, major problem in today's world. It worked great for Fred Flintstone, but you got one fight or flight response. And when someone triggers that, you go off. Okay. Now think of this adrenaline and cortisol in your system like COVID. Okay. Everybody can relate to COVID these days. If you get one COVID germ on your wrist, it's not going to hurt you. If you get 3 COVID germs, it's not going to hurt you. You get 50, it's not going to hurt you. But what if you get 500,000? Distress works the same way. You're always going to have amount of distress. Your body can function that. You can knock it out at the end of the day. But you can't handle 500,000 distressful things in one day. And that's what a lot of us put up with. And there's a lot of distress in the world from a lot of places. But I will tell you, when 75% of all Americans say they hate their job, they're miserable at it. And when the CDC has now stated that the number 2 cause of death for people under the age of 30 in America right now is suicide, we got to stop thinking of mental health and we got to start thinking about how can we start rewiring and repairing our brains and creating environments where it's okay to disagree and we don't actually hit each other with salt shakers because they back somebody politically that we don't like.
I would love to give people a way to reach you, Scott, to learn more about this or to engage you in your coaching and consulting practice and other services that you do. Where is it the best way for people to contact you?
Right in the corner there, scottwarwick.com. And I post if you go to the free resource, there's lots of stuff out there. I really see this as my mission because it's almost like I've discovered, it's almost like when, you always say, well, such and such discovered the Pacific Ocean. Yeah, it was kind of there all the time. Biggest frickin' ocean in the world. Okay. You kind of knew. And I'm sure the Japanese saw it on the other side of the ocean. Okay. But honestly, to me, this stuff is just common sense. It's just common sense. Why would you? And if you are on psychiatric medications, and they're working, that's fantastic. Wonderful. That's great. Why would you not also try to improve your brain? And so I've got, if you look at my website and go to free resources, there are hours of videos under the Lunch and Learns, under diversity and tolerance, under brain health, where people can go and learn for free. Now, the book is much more detailed. And so I took all this stuff and put it in. That's why the thing is 280 pages. Okay. But there's tons of stuff on my website. I'm easy to find. If you just Google Scott Warwick, my website will come right up, and I am right there. And I've already had like 4 or 5 different emails from folks today from a previous podcast that I did about how they can get help. And I am just very happy to help them. Absolutely. That's what I do.
I went ahead and put a link to your website and also a link specifically to the resources on stress and the brain into the chat log. So that'll show up in the comments on Amazon and on YouTube and Facebook. So Scott, and we just have a couple minutes left. Is there a piece of this story that you want to get out that we haven't discussed yet, or a message or something else that you want to leave behind with people before we sign off on the bookcast?
Yeah, I think that it's really important for people to realize that it's up to you. It's you're the doctors, and for the people that I coach, I want a psychiatrist on that team because there's medication involved, but I want a psychologist involved because they're not going to prescribe you drugs. They're going to work with you, cognitive behavioral therapy type of thing. So, but they're your advisor. It's your body. It's like if you had a heart condition. If you had a heart condition, you would not go 2, 3, 4, 5 years and not see improvement and think that's okay. If you got a brain issue, it's your job. And I talk about it in the book about superheroes. And I think superheroes are really popular these days because the movies are exciting and everything. But comic books have always been popular. Superheroes. It's like we want a superhero to come in and save everything for us. Well, even if there was a superhero who could come in and help you, you have to do this. You have to take charge and educate yourself and talk to your medical team and look into what is going to be best for you. So, you're responsible for your mental health. You're responsible for your physical health. Your doctors and psychiatrists and psychologists and everybody, they're there to advise you, but they're your decisions to make. And I give you a lot of different things in the book, things that, like differences between Michael and I. Michael loves to eat salads, never puts dressing on them. I love to eat salads, but if I don't put dressing on it, I will choke and die. Okay. So, and Michael's a long distance runner. No way. I'm not built for distance. Okay. So I have other things that I do. Everybody needs to personalize their program for them. But the main thing about the book, I start the book this way and I end it that way. This book is about hope. Don't ever let somebody tell you that because you were born a certain way or because you've developed it, because you've been this way, that you have to stay that way. And I'm not talking cure for everything. What I'm talking about is being able to rewire your brain so that you can live a better life. And that's up to you. It's totally up to you. So there is hope if you're willing to pay this price.
Well, thank you so much, Scott. And just remind people that they can grab Healing the Human Brain on Amazon. And it's got some great, the pictures of the brain scans are in here. There's a ton of different resources, and Scott's taken the time to have it appropriately illustrated as well. So I encourage people to do that. Scott, thank you so much for joining us today and for trusting us with yet another book that is the highest praise. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I'm really hoping it can make a difference out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So pick up Healing the Human for you. Please certainly reach out to us. Remember, here at Ignite Press, we specialize in helping people create high quality books that they can use to ignite their brand, ignite their business, and get their message out to the world. If you'd like, you can go to our website at ignitepress.us, and you'll see a link there to schedule a book consultation. I would be happy to talk with you about your book and your ideas. Thank you again for joining us today.